Believe it or not, but Germans drink more coffee than they drink beer. And this obsession starts usually early in the morning and it continues until the afternoon when we have our coffee and cake. So today I'm combining these two obsessions and I will make a Mocha Cream Cake. For this cake I first need to bake a base cake and then I will prepare 2 fillings and assemble the cake and decorate it. So let's start with an overview of the ingredients that I need for the base cake. And like always, the recipe is on the blog. You can print it out there and you can switch between the metric and the US customary measurements. To start the base cake, I first have to whip the eggs with the sugar and the pinch of salt. So here you can see that the color of the eggs has completely changed. It was very yellow at the beginning and now it's much brighter. So my next step is to add the oil. I will slowly let it drip into the batter while I'm mixing, and I'm also adding the milk and the coffee. So this is very liquid. And by the way, I'm using decaf coffee because I'm very sensitive to caffeine, and if I have coffee in the afternoon I will be up all night. So I have to be careful with that, and I've learned that quite a few people have the same condition, that their liver doesn't have that enzyme that is or doesn't have enough of that enzyme that is breaking down the caffeine. So it's not just me. So for my next step, I'm mixing the baking powder and the cocoa in a bowl with the flour, and then I will sift it and add it to the mixture, slowly mixing it in. I'll give this one last stir here before I put it into the cake pan. Just want to be sure that it's all mixed well, but it looks good. I can smell the coffee, the espresso. Okay, and I've prepared the baking pan with some parchment paper and some butter on the sides, and now I am adding the batter to the cake pan. This is a 10-inch or 26 centimeter cake pan. Okay. I want the bubbles to go out. All right. So this goes into the oven. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. You can make it slightly cooler than that if you want. Every oven is a little bit different. And I will bake this for about 60 minutes. If I see that the cake is getting too dark on the top at the end of the baking time, I will cover it with some aluminum foil. I'll have to see if that's happening or not, and I just want you to know that that's what you have to look out for. It's time to make the French buttercream, and here's what you need for that. I will start with the eggs. They go into a pot, and this pot will be over some hot water in a little bit. Turn this off. I don't want this to boil actually, the water. I'll whisk the eggs with the sugar and place them over hot water so that I'm killing all the bacteria or possible salmonellas that might be in the eggs. And I will whisk that for about 10 minutes, and then I will continue with the next step. So I will now put the egg mix into another bowl to mix it up with an electric mixer, and then I will whisk the soft butter until it is really foamy. In the next step, I will mix these two ingredients with each other, pouring the egg mix into the butter, and I will also add the coffee and the cocoa powder. And you want to make sure that the egg and sugar mixture is cooled enough so that the butter will not melt when you mix these two things together. And I will place this into the fridge now for a little bit so it gets a little more solid again. For the cream filling, I'm whisking the cream with two of these sachets of stabilizer. We call them Sahnesteif. You can get these at Amazon and sometimes also in the grocery. If you don't have it, you can instead just use a tablespoon of cornstarch. And if you want, you can add a little bit of sugar to the cream, but it's not really necessary because I will be adding the chocolate to it, and this will give it a sweet taste. I'm also adding a little bit of instant mocha. You can also use a little bit of a brewed mocha, a brewed espresso, but that might make it a little bit too liquid. And you can see that the consistency of the cream is very firm due to the stabilizer. Okay, I will add the chocolate. I'll put this into a piping bag, and the piping bag has a large round opening like this. I can make it even a little larger, I think. Let's go with this here. Might be better. Alright. And you know I have the habit to reuse these as often as possible. This is how the cake has turned out. And you can see it has quite a bit of a dome that I will have to remove. And if you don't know what to do with this leftover, I can really recommend making some Rumkugeln, some rum balls with that. The recipe is here. And just go around here. Try to cut it as even as possible. Okay. Removing this. Okay, and I'm left with a quite good leveled cake. And I will cut this twice, so I have 3 layers of cake. Yes, and now I want to put everything together. So for the first step here is to soak the bottom of the cake in some espresso. For that I'm just pouring some espresso into a larger baking pan. And you can use, a baking pan or a big plate or anything that is large enough to hold one of these cakes. And I'll take the bottom up and put this in here. So this is a very easy way to soak a layer of cake in some liquid. And I could of course also add some alcohol here, but I'm not doing this because we are eating this as a family and the kids are not old enough. So let me start with the first layer. And you don't have to have one of these cake rings. I like to use them. It gives me a little bit of control over the things that happen in here. So I have the French buttercream. It is not as solid as I wish it would be. It's probably because the kitchen is quite warm with all the lamps, and it's Texas, it's August. What do I expect? However, I'm going to use it because it will be more solid once the cake was in the fridge. So, but to make sure that things stay in place, I will start with the cream filling. Usually I would start with the buttercream first, but in this case, since the buttercream has not really solidified enough, I will just start with the cream as the outer layer and then add the French buttercream. And let me put a little bit more into the center, like this. And the next layer. Again, some of the cream. And the last layer. I'm adding a thin layer of the buttercream on top of that. So and this goes now into the fridge. I want to finish the top of the cake with a chocolate ganache, and for that I'm using some of my leftover chocolate, and it's really always a good opportunity to use all these chocolate Easter bunnies and whatnot that's still somewhere in your pantry. And so I have some really dark chocolate and some milk chocolate here that I just mixed together. And I will pour some hot cream over this and simply let this melt in the cream, stirring it so that everything gets combined. So originally I wanted to leave the side of the cake naked, but I had so much of the French buttercream left over that I decided to just whip up a little more of the cream for decoration and mix some of that cream with the leftover buttercream just to use that on the sides. And then I will also add a little bit of chocolate sprinkles. You don't have to do that. I mean, this cake is work enough, and if you feel like you have done enough with this cake, leave it out, but that's what I've just decided to do. So let's see. This looks really nice. I hope you can see this here, and you can see all the layers. So let's just put on some of the buttercream and cream mix on the sides of the cake. I'll just use the spatula first, and then I will clean it a little bit up. Yeah, well, the sprinkles went everywhere. I had to bury them a little bit on the top because I still want to add some very nice chocolate ganache on the top. And I really want this to drip on the sides. It looks probably a little more impressive if it's a naked cake. But I think that works too. Oh, looks good. I will let this drip a little longer, then put it into the fridge for a moment, and then I will continue and add the cream and make some of these little swirls and decorate that with the chocolate, and then the cake will be finished. So, the cake is finished. I will just have to transfer it to a nice little suitcase, and then I will transport it tomorrow to my son, who is in college now, and I will visit him at his new apartment. So I think this has turned out pretty well. I regret a little bit the sprinkles, the chocolate sprinkles on the side. I feel like they're probably a little bit too much, but I don't think it's a bad thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe and hit the bell button if you haven't yet. And stay here to watch some more of my videos. Thanks for watching. Bye!